What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Get the Bag podcast, episode 40. I'm your host, Gladia Castro. Got my co host, Tim Park.
What's
Uh,
up, fam?
what's going on, everybody? So, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We have a really exciting guest today. But before we get all into that, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us on social media. Um, and let's just get this cooking. I'm really excited. For those who don't know, we kind of blasted a post on
Yeah,
IG because our goal was to get as many guests on here because we love sharing stories and just having conversations, because we found that a lot of the people in our audience are either beginners or starting off in their real estate journey. So I was really excited when our guest decided to sign up because she shares a lot of knowledge. This Our guest is a multifamily investor. She's a wife, a mother of two, began her real estate journey with very minimal resources, which is happens a lot for many
yeah.
of us, but managed to acquire a three-family property in 2015. Gosh, I wish I should have bought some stuff back then. But she owns properties in New York, Pennsylvania, and the Southeast. Our guest Nicole founded Noirvest Holdings, a private real estate equity firm with a mission to provide minorities and women with greater access to multifamily investments. She hosts the Share the Wealth Show, a podcast dedicated to alternative wealth building strategies for underprivileged communities, and created the Microfamily Mavericks mentorship program. Whew, what else can't she do? Uh,
Love it.
let's
Love it.
welcome Nicole Pendergrass to the Get the Bag podcast. What's going on, Nicole?
Hey,
Hi, thank
Nicole.
you so much for having me. That was a great intro. Thank you.
No, of course. I was because anytime we ask for like a blurb and then I try like condense it to like, but there you've done a lot, girl. So I was like,
Yeah,
I never want to like
100%.
miss out on the little things. Like I want to share exactly what you do because, like I said, so many people are starting out in their real estate journey, and you've been there, and to kind of share sort of your background in terms of like how you got started in all this because you've been in the game for a minute, almost 10 years. So
Mm,
you,
Yeah, and the funny thing about that is because people always ask me, when did I start in real estate? And I feel like my start has so many starts.
Mm,
I can't just pinpoint to a year. So
right,
if you really think about it, the very first real estate conference I ever went to where I knew that real estate investing, I found out real estate investing could happen for the average person, not just like if you have, tons of money, your family's rich or you're a business or all of that. That was in 2010. So,
mm,
yes. So then I've been in for 13 years. If you say that, my first investment, of course, wasn't 2010. And I tried for years doing other things that did not work. And I finally gained my footing with the three-family house hack that you mentioned. So
mhm,
there's a lot of trial and error. And when you're starting, you're just trying to finagle and throw things against the wall and see what sticks and do all the things they tell all the newbies to do. The
right,
wholesaling and that you don't have
mm-hmm.
to use money and credit. And honestly, I think people and the gurus on the stages, they highly um not underestimate, but they under promote what like wholesaling really is. It's much
right,
more difficult than they make it seem
Right.
for
absolutely.
newbies getting started. But yeah, I could go in a whole tangent with a bunch of other stuff, but just let me know where you want me to go.
No, that's great. I think it's definitely facts. I mean, when we started, it was kind of like late
Mm-hmm.
2020 going to 2021. And that was at
Yep.
the kind of big time of like COVID. Everybody was freaking out and then not knowing what to do. People lost a lot of their jobs. So they had to turn to something. And that's where these fake gurus or whatever you want to call it started really turning up out of nowhere, talking about like, oh, you can make quick money. And, people see the golden object and just want to or shiny object, I should say, and they just want to go for it, go for the easy wins, quick
Mm-hmm.
money. And we've mentioned it before, and even us as like wholesalers, we've been very honest of like, okay, people that say you don't need much, you don't need money, you still need money to invest. And I've even been saying you need to have a foundation before you start a business, whether it's like finding ways to collaborate with others or partner up with others or have a job that can really pay for your business. People just we just want to take shortcuts. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because I think people don't really understand. They see people with Rolls Royces and chains and everything, and they just want to go for that. So thank you for just stating the truth. Continue to state the truth, because sometimes people just ignore the facts.
Yeah, and it's like when I started out with wholesaling, I felt like, I don't know, I think what you said about having the foundation no matter what business you start, that's so important. And you need to sit and like do the mental work, like go and look internally and really dig out like who you are, what your strengths and weaknesses are. And I know that's extremely hard. A lot of times you don't even know what your own strengths are. You don't think you're starting out and you're new. Don't think you're good at anything, right? But that's where I think being intentional about mentorships or groups that you're around and having those conversations with someone who can kind of really get a feel for who you are and direct you into discovering, almost like a therapist for business, right? Discovering what you should be doing, what your strengths are, and what do you think, even if you don't have resources, who can you connect to, and what, like, are you a people person? Can you make a team, put a team together? Like, and can you talk to people who potentially have financing that you can use to help, with the business model? What does your business model even look like? Can you actually create a business plan and tell people what you're trying to do and what's your bigger vision, and sell people on your bigger vision, not just like on the day-to-day actions. I started my whole process with wholesaling because that's what they tell all the newbies to do. And I tried wholesaling for like 2 years and never did a deal. And I'm in New York City, so yeah, it's difficult here. But I started for a few months by myself, and then I got a group of friends together. So there were 4 of us total. And we did all the things. Like, we had an LLC. We met up every week. We went to the courthouses pulling probate leads. We went to auctions. Like, we sent out in the middle of the night hanging bandit signs. Like, we just did all the stuff. And it just was like having all the conversations, going all the networking, all the stuff. And it just never materialized for us. Like, we got close one time, but I don't know. So I think there's just like, there is that missing kind of like mindset or somebody to kind of connect all the dots. Even when you're doing all the things, it doesn't always just work out because you do XYZ that the gurus told you to do.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's important. I mean, like you're saying, it's just, it took, you 2 years and without doing a deal, and, you did team up with people, but also having, leveraging someone that actually has closed deals or was a mentor in the space, but also who you could trust, or who was just not a guru, but someone that actually did the business, right? And had a business, not just a side gig, or, they're doing it on the side or just trying to make money off of other people, that explaining how it's done. So what are some of the, I guess, mentors that you kind of maybe leverage to partner up and, kind of switch your strategy off of, a wholesaling into maybe on the investing side?
Okay. So actually, I guess my very first mentor was unofficial, wasn't like a paid mentor. That's when I joined the New York City RIA, because they always tell newbies to join the RIA, right? And so the lady who was running the RIA at the time, and I don't know if she still runs it, but her name was Teresa Martin. And she was, just really good with getting people especially who are newer, because your RIA is always going to end up being a bunch of newer people, but really kind of like guiding them and trying to teach them and show them. And she had a lot of experience. But we had ended up she had some property tours in different cities. And so she would host those. And so a bunch of us went to a city tour in Detroit. And because it was early, it was like 2013, 12, 13, 14, around that range. And so there were things happening in downtown Detroit, but it still was Detroit, like all the warnings you get about that city.
Right.
But because we all had very minimal capital to work with, and just the price points of the properties just were very attractive. Whenever you see cheap properties, and especially if you're from New York and you see you can get a property for $5,000, you're like, oh my gosh, I can invest, and so you're just so thirsty to get the thing done. So we all joined together. We put like $5,000 in each. So we had a good amount. We went to a auction, online virtual auction, bought like 4 properties, put the money capital, like the cash we had, to rehab the properties, get them rented out. We had a whole plan about doing a special needs and affordable housing kind of initiatives. But at first we wanted to get the properties rented first to kind of spearhead and get like get our capital back, and then like really focus on the mission for the company. And then we just hit all the normal roadblocks and issues that people who invest out of state in Detroit, but don't have boots on the ground and don't know anything about block to block, all of that is what we ran into. And at the end of the day, that we probably had that company going for like 2 to 3 years. And we ended up selling off the properties basically at a loss. And if I went through all the things that we went through investing there, it's a huge learning experience. But yeah, so that was my first way, like I actually invested some money and actually was helping with the day-to-day operations of that business. But I never really felt like it was fully mine, because it was such a large group of us doing it. And I was on an acquisitions committee and the team helping to do all the management stuff, but it still wasn't, I feel like the gate opener for me was when I finally got my 3-family house hack. And that one was just from all the years of knowledge and research, and not mentorship, but like 3-day courses and 3-day boot camps and seminars and RIA and all this stuff, all the books and just everything I had was like a voracious, networker, and going out there, even though I didn't think I was good at networking, but I was going to all the networking events because I just knew I needed to be there and I need to have my face like in the room. And eventually somebody from the RIA is the one who told me about a homeowners grant. And so I went over, stood in line, I got approved for the grant. Then I went through the process of looking for property based off of the grant's kind of box and criteria and deadlines that it had. It forced me into looking for condos because the timeline was so tight. I wouldn't have been able to look for a multifamily like I needed to. I found 2 condos. Both contracts fell through, like a whole nother round of stories and things that went wrong. But when the second one fell through, I actually just said, you know what? This gives me time to look for the multifamily I wanted anyway, because I always wanted to house multifamily. So I took some of the skills I learned from wholesaling, even though I had never done a wholesale deal. I knew how to, had researched the best ways to send direct mail and how to do the yellow letter campaigns or whatever it was back in the day. I'm probably aging myself saying that. I don't know if people still send yellow letters, but in any case,
they do. They do.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so making sure that the envelope looked different than all the other envelopes, so it wouldn't get tossed in junk mail. It can actually increase your open rates, and how to pull a list from List Source, and how to look up owners on Acris, which is New York City's version of the property deed database and all of that. So I had all those skills that I knew from going through those processes. So I just used that to pull a list of 3 and 4 family properties in the Bronx in certain zip codes that I just kind of guessed because I didn't know much about it. And I just picked, these zip codes look good. Let me just pick those. And so I just picked a size list that would be feasible for me to do myself, because I didn't have the money to outsource all the letters and everything else to other people. I wanted to be able to maintain the calls that could potentially come in. So I kind of broke that up and mailed a few a week to make sure that I could handle whatever incoming calls I would get. So that's actually the very first mailing I did, is how I got my 3-family.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. I mean, if you think about it, if we're going back to the foundation analogy, you can really use that with the example of wholesaling. That's the one thing, is wholesaling isn't for everybody. And so I'm glad you probably came to that realization and accepted it. And it's okay for it to take some time to get your first deal. I think, again, we live in, especially now, a world of instant gratification where people are like, oh, if I might get my first deal in a month, then I'm a failure, or I'm this and that. And it's just, the time you started though was way back before all the resources we have now. So I feel like maybe if you started like this year or last year, you would have probably a lot more resources, because I think it's wholesaling now. Like there's literally a blueprint provided, and you guys probably had to figure it out. But either way, like you guys had the foundation for marketing, like how to get direct to seller, which is really, as long as you can figure that out, like you can either exit strategy, you can do anything. You kind of have more power. So I think for those listening, it's like, whether however you feel about wholesaling, like it teaches you the basics of marketing and what marketing channels to attack, how to speak to sellers, how to communicate with buyers and other investors, because you can use those tools and skills and apply them anywhere. So, Nicole kind of took that and really kind of built her portfolio that way. One of my questions was, because I know you're sort of you're doing a lot of things. I'm like trying to see like what because you created a Noirvest Holdings that's really helps on helping minority professionals, right? Building wealth through multifamily, which I think is amazing. And I've seen like a huge uptick too in the Black and brown communities as well, and like investing and not wasting money, like being really intentional. When did that get started, and like what kind of motivated you to start that mission, and how, like, what kind of things are you guys doing now to like make that happen?
Oh, so actually, even the name Noirvest Holdings, that came because before, it's an LLC that I had previously. After I had bought my 3-family, I started an LLC. I don't know why I started that LLC. Maybe there's so many different things I was trying to do at the same time. But I had the LLC.
Aren't we all?
Named something completely different. So I just had it, wasn't doing anything with it. But then after I decided to scale up and to get into the commercial multifamily side of things, I had joined a mentorship that was specifically on multifamily. And then probably not a full year, maybe half a year, three quarters of a year after that, I had found a multifamily mentor who was a minority and a Black man in the space. And I had never seen that before. And to me, whenever I had years of going to all these networking events, and I never saw anyone like me on stage, right? And so when I saw that he was posting, I found him on LinkedIn, he was posting and talking about multifamily and all this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, if I had met him first, I might have joined his group instead of the other group I had already joined. Not that I really like the other group that I'm in. There's no problems there, but it's just something about familiarity and seeing somebody like you who
you connect with
doing it. Yeah, it's just like different, and it's so hard to explain and to pinpoint, because sometimes a lot of times it's just an inner feeling and things that people don't say out loud, and so you can never prove. But when you're the one in the seat, you can feel it, right? It feels a little different. That's so hard to explain if you're not living this life, right? But you don't, and that's the other thing, is you don't want to just point to everything being that as an issue, because it's not always that, right? And there's other things that should not be a scapegoat for you to not, do what you need to do or show up the way you need to show up. But in any case, he had, I joined his smaller mentorship group, which was like a Facebook group that had weekly calls, and a few calls I would go on Fridays, and I'd be the only one in there. So I would like one-on-one coaching from him and one of his other friends who was experienced, and having a conversation one time about like what I was going to do and how I was going to show up, and having that. I think this was also around the time of like George Floyd and the whole Black Lives Matters movement, all of that. So I was really feeling like, if your feed is you just follow a lot of minorities and Black people, then and you scroll on social media and that's all you saw was like, that was all I was posted all the time. Kind of, I'm not one of those kind of people. Like it takes a lot to get me riled up. I have pretty thick skin, so I survived in real estate so long. But that can get to you, right? And you see a lot of times I just don't even watch the videos. I don't finish because I just can't, like,
it's too much.
It's too much. What can I do? So in any case, through those conversations, and I'm thinking, oh, I had the kind of the dichotomy of thinking, do I brand myself around wanting to help minorities, even though that's what I want to do? Or do I brand myself in just some other way and my secret mission is to help minorities? Or am I supposed to be bold and brave and forward with that statement? And that was something that I highly like struggled with inside, because I had the feeling that if I branded for minorities and building minority wealth and creating equality in investing, that would limit or hinder my business growth.
Isn't that something though? Like that we all go through.
Yeah.
You know, even minorities have to. That is always a thought in the back of your head of like, am I really going to do this? And you have to make that decision.
Yeah. And that's basically what I fought with. And he kind of gave me the thought that there's no one out there right now that looks like you that's doing this. So of course I tried to think of all the Black women in my head that I could name and be like, no, there's so-and-so, or there's so-and-so, you know, like some other people. And then he just shot all of those down. I was like, no, because XYZ, like they're just like, you are unique and you have a unique story and presence. Like, you see the curls right now, but I have like an afro and all this. And so anybody else is kind of like, you know, your hair is straight, and because you're being Black, but you're not. And I don't want to say that people who straighten their hair assimilate, but you know what I'm saying? It's just like embracing the full naturalness of whatever you are. And I wasn't doing that on purpose. Like that happened for other reasons in the past, but still I was who I was. Right. And so that kind of gave me the encouragement to just go ahead and pick a name that specifically said Black, like Black investing. The other thing that I found out, a lot of Americans don't know what noir means anyway. So it wasn't like it was a big, so they can't even pronounce it. But everyone listening, noir is French for Black. So Noirvest is invest Black invest. I just was trying to
like that.
Putting them together.
Love it.
But yeah.
Love it. No, I had a kind of a similar story in regards to like partnering up with a family office, because I think with me, I wanted to keep the door open, because it's all about, like you had mentioned earlier, is when you get into these rooms, there's no one that looks like us in these rooms. And especially when you're talking about maybe multi-million-dollar maybe deals or anything like that. And one, I felt really comfortable because she was a woman and she was doing deals that were, things that I couldn't even imagine at the time, right? And so, and then she told me why I wanted to kind of partner up with her, and I told her my story, and I just told her I want to be at your level, but I don't want to keep the door shut. I want to keep the door open for other minorities to get to this level as well too. And that's one thing that we kind of decided in our business, is to do that and empower, minorities and educate minorities on how to do these bigger deals too. So I loved how your business is that way. So I think that's amazing.
Thank you. And I'm still trying to grow and, and trying to get bigger and better and do all the things and pivot when I feel like pivoting is necessary. But the core of all my business models that I've been, putting out is to help Blacks and minorities, Blacks and Browns be able to, especially those of us who historically weren't allowed to own real estate or have bank accounts or read and write, honestly, that we might have these opportunities now, but behind closed doors, there's still some blocks happening, and we know it. So we just have to, I don't think it gives us an excuse to not try and not move forward and keep pushing through, because we do have access to these, just whatever is out there for helping us get to that next level. So whatever that looks like for us, I just feel like no matter what obstacles we think may be in the way, as long as we keep pushing and keep moving forward, maybe we have to jump through a few extra hoops, or we have to run the extra mile, but we can still make it happen. And so as long as we push through and we keep that in mindset, and we keep the bigger picture of like closing that wealth gap and helping generational wealth, we're in the position we are now because generationally we did not have those opportunities. Our parents don't have anything to pass down to us. So if we want to pass it down to our next generation, and it's hard when it's for something that you won't see. Right. That's what makes it harder, because you want to be able to live in that and bask in that abundance, that, and that equality that we see across, America or wherever else. But when you know that it's happening, but at a slower rate, and whatever you're putting in place for like your kids or your grandkids or whatever is going to be, hopefully they use it correctly and they don't squander what you're putting together. You put the right structure around it. But at the same time, like, you won't fully live in what is to come, but we still have to prepare for that. And that's the difficult part in us. Like, you want to live in abundance now, but you also want to prepare for the future. So,
you want to live in abundance, but you're like, I want to like enjoy the fruits of my labor too,
yes.
of like, with my kids. But I think this is what investment is. It's slow. It's, the build of wealth takes a lot of time. And like you said, we probably will outgrow it. But the whole purpose is like, what are we passing down? It's the legacy. And many people bring it up. But when you're actually in it, you look back on like, I would hope you look back and you're like, wow, I created this. It's not done. It's just getting started. So I think there's something powerful in that, and why it's like so important to spread the knowledge. And I've even seen within the last couple of years I've been in real estate, so many more people are much more curious about investing, which is really great to see. So if they hear that I'm in real estate or whoever, they're like, oh, what do you do? Previously, the question was like, oh, are you a realtor? Are you just, a real estate agent? I'm like, there's so much more than that. I'm like, no, I do this, or I try this. And I think we're definitely in a step in the right direction, have a lot of work to do, but I think the directions that you're going and creating these initiatives that we're creating is what's really going to make and break and closing the wealth gap. So it's a motivating for sure.
Yeah, I still get that realtor question all the time. Most of the time, that's what it is.
Girl, real estate is not just a real estate agent.
Yeah. You help people buy houses, right? Not really. Like, I help you invest in a property if you want to live there too, I guess. But I'm not. That is not my I am so not that kind of like. This is my personality. I'm already. I need to woosah myself, because I'm just thinking about as a buyer going out, oh, this paint color is off, or, this room over here. I don't know. And when I go into a house and I'm looking, at least for myself, I'm already looking at the walls. I'm like, okay, I could take this wall down here. I could put this over here. I could change. Like, I'm in my head rearranging the house how I want it to be. So the numbers just need to make sense for me to be able to do that. But I'm not complaining to y'all that like, oh, I need a discount, or I don't want this house because the wall's brown. And I just, as real agents, have the patience of saints. I don't know how y'all do it.
100%.
That's
100%.
a hard,
I don't know how they do it either.
Hard job, but it's not for me.
Right. Well, I wanted to kind of dive into, since we're kind of in the topic of like how you were exposed with like mentorship, because you created a mentorship program. I think you call it Microfamily Mavericks. Talk to us about that, how that kind of, I'm sure it's like another initiative that you've that came to you on like, hey, how can I spread this knowledge and bring on more people? If people were interested in like buying multifamily, like what does that look like?
Okay, so that actually was an initiative just from my experiences. So after buying my 3-family, after getting into the commercial side of things, I had bought a couple of properties as a joint venture on the smaller multifamily side, so under 10 units. But from that, because of my connections in my other mentorship groups, I got invited to help with syndications. So I did help like raise capital and be part of the GP team on a couple of syndications. And between that experience and a lot of conversations I had over the years with my colleagues and friends, like just people who we can have these conversations because we're both doing the same thing and having that shared experience. And when you are raising capital on social media, there's just a certain way, like in order to attract capital, sometimes you have to posture, right? And you can't make it look like when you're having hard times and all of that. And so in order to attract capital, you have to posture. But then like, even when you're talking to passive investors is almost like talking to a home buyer if you're a realtor. Like you have to lay out all the things about the property, the returns and how their capital works and all that, which makes sense. Like someone's investing a good chunk of capital into a deal that you are representing, right? So that is the way that you need to educate your potential passive investors. All the things, like the books I've read about how to raise capital and, all the conversations and just what I know you're supposed to do, what I've gotten guidance wise from like mentors, is just as much work doing the pre-work to put yourself out there, because you have to put yourself out there so people know that you are an investor and that you syndicator and that you're trustworthy or you have the right connections and that you can handle capital with a fiduciary type of responsibility and all these other things. So just going through that whole process, and I saw a lot of people who are newer into real estate getting started with the capital raise side of syndications, because they always tell you, just like they tell people who are new trying to wholesale, if you're going to be into big multifamily and get involved with syndications, you need to partner up with an experienced operator so you can leverage their experience. So, because otherwise, why are people going to trust you with their capital, right? You got to put yourself out there, post on social media, have a thought leadership platform, post on, like, have a podcast, run a meetup, do all those different things to put yourself at the front of the room so that people feel like they can trust you and want to partner or do a deal with you
and give you money.
Deals. Yes, and give you money as a limited partner. So out of doing all of that, this is a lot of work. And some people are throwing, I feel like I've heard plenty of stories, people paying $30,000, $40,000 as a new investor to get into a bigger name guru mentorship program so that they can start being involved. Everybody wants to be a GP because that's the general partner, because that's the big sexy thing to do, be a GP or syndication and say, I took down a 100-unit deal. The behind the scenes of that is a lot of newer investors, even if you're partnering with an experienced operator, a lot of newer investors aren't raising the capital that is required to have a big enough portion of the GP share in order to take home the kind of cash flow that they assume they're going to get investing in multifamily. So everyone's getting into multifamily because they want financial freedom. They want to change their lives. They want to, have cash flow and abundance and all of that. But syndication doesn't work like that. And a lot of times you'll get a big chunk of capital at the front end as your acquisition fee, very minimal during the whole period as an asset management fee, if any. And then you get some at the end whenever you refi or you sell the property. And that's like basically anything that you're doing is giving most of your capital to the limited partners, because if you're going to have a business, you have to continue to attract limited partners. And so you got to treat them right? They get first dibs on stuff, and you get the smaller share, 30%, whatever of the total deal. And then with that 20-30%, GP teams are normally split. There's way more than just one person. If you're doing the whole GP by yourself, then yes, you can get that whole 20 or 30%, and that could be substantial. Most of the time, you're not by yourself. There could be 5 to 10 people on the GP team. And depending on what your skill set is and what you're bringing to the table is going to depend on what your cut and your percent of ownership is of that deal. The problem with that is when newer people are getting in, they don't have a lot of skills to bring to the table. So that's why they end up starting with the capital raise side, and then they don't have the experience to raise the capital they think they need to raise. It's just a big circle. And like, this is not just from my own experience, but it's coupled with all the conversations I've had with people who are in these predicaments, like same as me, like getting involved. And so at the end of the day, I ended up I started Noirvest with the thought of like helping people who are minorities passively invest in properties that I was helping to syndicate. And when I had these experiences and conversations, I said there has to be another way for me to help in a more direct manner for people who are
Right.
not just looking to passively invest. A lot of us, if you have a little bit of equity and capital to start with, or a little bit of resources, most of the time you need to be active in order to grow that, and then you can transition over to passive later on if
Right.
that's what you want to do.
Mhm.
But in order to build your equity and net worth and all that faster, more than like you're going to have to be an active operator, and you have more control and more takeaway of the ownership in a property when you're active, and you're only joint venturing with 2 or 3 maybe other people, right? Or even one other person.
Right.
So that's where I ended up saying, okay, you know what? The reason syndication works for me is because I already had cash flow from my smaller buildings. I wasn't relying on cash flow just from the syndications. I had already done projects, right? Which gave me more experience and more hands-on learning than being on the GP team of these larger syndications. And I said, I don't see a lot of people looking like me who are running multifamily mentorship groups. And because I'm still in the trenches and growing my portfolio and net worth and cash flow myself, I still feel all the pain points that the people I'm trying to help feel, because I'm still living it too. I just happen to have a few buildings and some experience that I can help leverage and share with people who don't have any experience, or who are maybe in the single family realm and they want to get into commercial, and commercial seems like a big scary thing. But I think starting small, 5 to 20 unit range, and that's why I call it micro, that's a perfect way to step your foot into the commercial arena and do it in a way where you can hedge. You don't have to lose your shirt. It's not as easy, because if you can buy a 3 or 4 unit, you could buy a 6 or 7 unit. And now it's just the commercial side. And there are some advantages to doing commercial versus residential. And there's some detriments. Like, the only detriment really is if you were going to live in your residential, then you get better financing and insurance terms. But otherwise, if you're doing completely non-owner occupant investing for a 4 family versus a 7 family, you still got to bring 25% down. You still paying for non-owner occupant insurance. You still but you have a little bit more control over the valuation on the commercial side, because it's based off of the income and not just the property next door. So there's like a lot of details that people need to consider when they're thinking whether residential versus commercial is right for them. But it also depends on your strategy. If you're a equity, just buy and hold, and you want appreciation, or if you want cash flow. So all of those like factors to consider, and that's the kind of stuff that I cover, especially in the first few modules of my mentorship, is really strongly about the foundation. I think the foundation, remember we did talk about doing that internal like audit of yourself and what you're trying to do and what your strengths and weaknesses are and all that kind of stuff. So I definitely heavily focus on that at the very beginning, that, and then creating what your buy box is, and based off of what your internal like risk tolerance and resources and all these other things. And then now you can get into, okay, now let's teach about underwriting. Now let's go into like direct to seller strategies. Now let's look at lending practices or creative financing strategies. So I go through like that whole process so that people who are looking to get into real estate, or even into multifamily and scale up into multifamily, have a more like hands-on step-by-step approach of doing so, and have direct access to the mentor instead of being like in a big group where they never talk to the person, right? But they're spending like $30,000 or $40,000. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, I understand scaling up a mentorship group. I get it. But at the same time, are you really trying to help people get started, or are you just trying to make more money off your mentorship than you do off of your coaching? I mean, off of your in real estate investing, you got what I'm saying. But yeah, long answer. But yes, that's why I ended up starting
it's all good.
the mentorship, is because
it was great.
From all of those experiences that I had and conversations that I had, and just seeing what was happening out there, I wanted to help, especially minorities, see someone who's doing it and can kind of help them. And it's really a tough market now. I won't lie. I won't say that, you're going to get your property quickly. Like, you're getting started now, you're entering in a tough market. But I also highly believe entering now is better than waiting, because then you're laying the foundation. People are getting to see your face. You're putting your name out there. You're talking to realtors. You're looking at properties. You're practicing underwriting. And even if you're outreaching directly to owners, you're doing all that now, and you may be getting a lot more no's now. But as the market starts to like even stabilize, or, things get a little bit worse, they're going to reach out to the person who has been reaching out to them consistently over the past 6 months,
Right.
So I think anybody who can buy property now is going to be in a prime position in a few years when things start stabilizing and rate cuts start happening. And then we won't get back down to the rates we were. It won't ever get back that low. But when it kind of stabilizes and commercial real estate and multifamily is hot again, then guess who's going to get all that equity growth and that increased rent growth? You are, because you started now. They always say millionaires are made when there's a down market. And that's why I'm continuing to buy and look at properties. I haven't bought in a year, but I'm starting that whole process of going direct to seller, picking a new market, like looking at all the metrics and really being bullish about acquiring as many properties as I can during this downturn in the market, or whatever you want to call it.
That's awesome. I think you unpacked a lot there, and there was a lot of gems.
So many gems. Too many.
Sorry.
No,
I mean, the good way.
It was great. It was totally a good way.
No, people will play back. Like, if you do, like, play this back.
100%.
And
100%. Yeah. And if you didn't understand some of the terms that Nicole was saying, definitely reach out to her for her mentorship, and then, her program as well too, because I'm sure she'll walk you through what she means by certain terms that she was using in multifamily, because whether it's a GP, general partner, or limited partner. So these are just some of the terms that you'll run into when you get into like multifamily or commercial real estate as well too. So I know we're getting close to the time, but I wanted to ask you, like, what are your kind of long-term goals or visions? What are some of the things that you want to do in providing a positive impact to other individuals as well too? So what is your kind of overall goal going into the future?
Oh, there's so many different goals, and as I get experience, they kind of like shift, and I'm adding things or changing things up. But ultimately, besides just, getting myself and my family to a place where I feel like I don't feel like I'm definitely not living like paycheck to paycheck or anything like that anymore, but getting to the place where we just feel more abundant. Like, lifestyle is just different. Not doesn't mean that we're spending lavishly and going crazy, but just like, honestly, today I was able to work from home today. I never get to work from home, but I took my daughter to work, and because it's a holiday, there was like no traffic. Getting to school was so much easier than other days I take her to school. Coming home, picking her up, finding parking, all of that was just easy. And I'm like, that's the easy that I just want, like, daily life things to be easy. And that's honestly like one of my biggest goals, like coming in the near future, is I want to move away from the New York City area, because I just want to find something. I want to have a house that I can drive into within a driveway, and I don't have to go around looking for parking and worry about what day of the day of the week it is for alternate side of street parking. And like, if you're living in New York City, you understand, or any city,
city life.
LA, city life. That's city life.
You get it. But ultimately, big picture, outside of me and my family and my portfolio and what I want to have for them, I really do want to make a big impact in the Black and Brown community. Like, I would love for my group to grow to the level where we're like the biggest commercial group of investors who are Black and Brown, just buying up buildings and taking back wealth, right? Like, that is going to, once we have wealth, that's going to transform communities, because we're going to have the money to be in those outbid lobbyists for certain laws and regulations and
Yes.
rules that have been shutting us out of opportunities. Like, we're just going to be able to enact so much change because we have the financial resources to back like the senators or politicians or whoever we need to back in order to get certain laws pushed through that is going to be beneficial for us as a community. And closing that wealth gap. Closing the wealth gap seems like such a huge, like, I feel like scared to even say it, because it's like, who am I to think I can help close the wealth gap? Like, it's crazy. Come on. It's like hundreds of years of like systematized things. I don't know.
Right.
But whatever I could do, any little piece that I can help, whatever portion of that I can help enact, is just adds to the overall pie of it. So yes, that, and I guess Noirvest Holdings in general, like, I just want to keep having like an education platform that really helps people learn how to invest, and not just investing. Share the Wealth show is all about 3 pillars of wealth building. So it's building the wealth, investing to grow it, and also protecting it so that generationally we have that to pass on to heirs. So ultimately is really hard. Like, I could name all the stuff personally I want with like income and houses and,
Right.
whatever it is. But the big picture of what I want to, the change I want to enact, is really helping our communities be able to level up and compete and be in the room.
Yeah,
I love that. I mean, that's you're already doing it. Whether I mean,
100%.
you know, all the work that you're putting into not only your Noirvest Holdings, but the mentorship, and then obviously the podcast. So I think you're well on your way, and I would love to maybe catch up in a year, or have you come back on a year to see like how much your community has grown, and
No
how
pressure.
many properties. We're holding you accountable right here. September 20th. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe if you want to, we could put it all out there for you. But thank you so much, Nicole, honestly, for joining in and taking time out of your day. And I've learned so much as of just having this conversation, and I hope our audience has too. If you guys want to reach Nicole, I provided all of her contacts and or links in the description, but you can catch her on the Share the Wealth show, as she mentioned. I believe the link is there, but make sure you tune into those episodes. Nicole, thank you so much. We'll definitely we'll have to connect for sure.
Definitely.
Maybe some deals down the line.
Excited.
Who knows?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I'm all about collaboration.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for tuning in again. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We'll catch you guys next Monday.
All right. Peace.
Bye.